came for the Sprawl alongside Boylan. One day ahead of Cage 68. Weigh-ins have just taken place. Now we're actually inside the Boylan and everyone's getting set up behind us. What are the emotions you're going through right now? I imagine you're very stressed. You probably ran around a little bit. What are you feeling right now just today before the show?
I've done about 50 shows, so stress doesn't really come into the equation with us. The team that I have in place here, they're a very well-oiled machine, so the only problems that we mainly have are with the fighters if anything happens with them coming up to the event. The actual event itself is an oiled machine. It runs itself. It's been done so many times. We come in, we set up, we do the event, and we leave. So there's no real stress. I don't see any point in getting stressed out with things that go wrong with the event. You just find a solution and fix it if any problems that do arise. So it's all good.
As I mentioned, weigh-ins about 15-20 minutes ago. Everybody made weight, so that's good, including the amateurs. Was there any worry at all? You know, obviously, I imagine you can't keep up with the fights before. Was there any worry that anybody was going to miss weight?
My biggest concern was Paddy. Obviously, missing weight on his last fight, and then going from that to convincing me he'd make weight for this for a world title shot was tricky talks. But he gave his word and he did it, and I think he was the big question mark on the card. But he's proved that he's a featherweight. He proved that he can make the weight. And what happened in his last fight was just a mishap. That happens. Cutting weight is a fine science, and you know sometimes it goes wrong. It happened on his last bout. He got it right this time. So I'm happy for him. He gets a world title fight shot on the Cage Wars platform in front of his home crowd. So it's gonna be a good night tomorrow.
It's going to be huge. Obviously, as you mentioned, Paddy missed weight last time. Came in and you know he got a free weigh and he shouted, "Who can't make featherweight? Who can't make featherweight?" Is that Do you like, is there any preference for you between fights who are kind of like Paddy shouting and talking or someone like this team like Fishbowl doesn't? Does that make any difference to who you're going to put on the show or anything like that?
It doesn't make a difference to us as an organisation who are putting on the show. Yes, it's great to have guys who can sell and promote fights, but every fight is different, and the fans follow each individual fighter for their own merits. People follow Paddy because he's got that extra little factor outside of his fighting. People follow Chris because of his fighting and who Chris is. So and every fighter has something different, and that's what makes the sport so varied, and that's why so many fans follow it and why it's getting so big right now is because there's so many different personalities and different fighters that come into fights and act differently and carry themselves differently. It makes the whole thing so much more interesting. So, but it doesn't make a difference to us. It's about the sport with us. We're very dedicated to doing the right thing by the sport and building these guys in Europe. So it's about the sport and their fighting skills. All the other stuff that goes with it is just it's a bonus and it's a plus.
Yeah. As you mentioned, you want to build fighters. The reason the featherweight title is vacant is because former champion Alex Emmons has been signed to the UFC. Also, we saw Jack Manson here today at the weigh-ins. Is that do you ever look into the future and in a few fights, if Paddy wins this one and carry on winning, he may go to the UFC and we're going to have to look for somebody else and find another person to fight for that title? Do you plan that far ahead into the future?
Yeah, we're always looking to build guys, and it's inevitable that the amount of guys that we've built over the years, PR'd and promoted and picked the guys for the skills that they had to move forward, they're always going to end up in the bigger show. Cage Warriors is a big platform for Europe. It's not a world platform, but it's huge for Europe. It's the biggest organisation, I believe, in Europe. And I don't think there's a European promotion out there right now that has a TV broadcast live footprint as big as us.
Yeah.
So for the fighters, that's huge. They get big, they move on, we look at who's coming through next. It's our job to build that talent, and we could be here for a long time listing the amount of names that we've built.
Yeah.
And not so much we built them as in their training and what they do in the gym. That's their coaches and teams side of the equation. Yeah. But it takes two to tango. It takes a really good gym and a good fighter to create that good fighter. But without the platform and the exposure, it doesn't work. I know plenty of fighters who are great, but they don't have the exposure, so they're not really where they should be. Yeah. So it's a 50-50 thing, and like I said, it takes two to tango to make that happen. But they'll go. Paddy will go. Chris will go. Jack Marshman will go. Alex Emmons gone. Other names are gone. and we'll build more.
Yeah.
We'll build more.
Have you noticed a change? I assume you have, in kind of the popularity of the organisation since the signing the deal with BT Sports and signing the deal with UFC Fight Pass. Have you noticed a significant change in that?
Yeah, there's a massive jump in popularity in Cage Warriors. They're really good partners to have. There isn't another organisation in Europe that has that partnership. We're can be viewed globally on UFC Fight Pass. We're in the UK now on BT Sport, sharing the network with the UFC, and the narrative all works. It's a great team environment to have all these teams working together, and it's unbelievable for the fans. Since we've been working with them, it just gets bigger and bigger, and it's going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And we're with Viasat in Scandinavia, so all the Scandinavian fighters, they all get to fight in Cage Wars, and it's live in their countries as well. So it's a lot of people forget we're only back 6 months.
Yeah, of course. Took a long hiatus, now you're back. Talk about how the UFC Fight Pass deal first came along, because it was somewhat unexpected. It kind of came out of the blue and it was announced straight away. Just how did that come about?
Well, we were talking for a long time, and the talks with that deal were on the table before I resigned as CEO first time round, and the talks got picked up again when things changed within the dynamics of the company. So to come back with them and do our first show in April, and here we are 5 months later, and we're on our 4th show. We've two more to hit this year, maybe 3, and that's a lot of shows for an organisation to come back and do in that short space of time and have double the amount of popularity that we had before.
Yeah.
And to build these fighters and all these fighters to have that platform to move on, it's great for them.
Yeah. What kind of made you, obviously this is the first time Cage Warriors is back at the arena in 2 years, what made you and your team kind of decide that this is the right place to be for this show?
I think it was basically around Paddy and Chris. They wanted it here.
Yeah.
Chris is a champion, Paddy is a title contender. Obviously Alex Endon getting signed to the UFC made that belt vacant towards the end. It was never going to be a fight between Paddy and Alex anyway, because timings didn't work and all sorts of scenarios there were pushing against that fight. So for Paddy was fighting here, Franchi anyway, that was agreed, and when Alex got signed to the UFC, 2 featherweights, best in the world, they can fight for the belt. So to come back here was a Paddy and Chris thing, and we needed to fit a show in the schedule, and the Echo Arena had one date in September, and it was September the 10th.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of talks. We said, fine, let's do it. Let's do it, and here we are.
Talk about after this one, you obviously got a show in Wales next month, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Cage Warriors 79. Talk about that. What are the plans for that, and what's over that card?
That's a big fight card, that main TV card. So we've got Marshman defending his belt. We've got Shane Mills and Lou Long, which is a very interesting fight for both guys, where they've both got to win. Where does the other one go if they don't? That's to me, looking at that, they're both great fighters, but they've got to win that fight. We've also got young Jack Shaw fighting on the card. So it's Nad Naramani's on there as well, and those 6 main TV card fights that are going to happen are pretty good. And then there'll be a massive amateur and pro premium on the card that go on there as well. I believe that event is pretty much close to 7 months, so yeah, good night on that.
Already, only a few weeks ago. Do you know how many tickets you've sold for this show?
I think we're up to about 4,000.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Tonight, what do you hope? Obviously, other than the show flowing nicely and nothing going wrong, what do you hope to get out of the show tomorrow night?
Just a great event, as always. All the fighters to go out there and perform, and the shows at the end of the day are about the fighters. They spend a lot of time in the gym training and sacrificing for this. So what we mainly hope is that on the event runs smooth, it's received well by the fans, the fighters get the rewards for what they've done, win or lose. I know it's a big thing, that winning and losing, but at the end of the day, if they go and perform to the best of their abilities, they can only be happy with what they've done, and the result is a bonus at the end of it. So as long as the fighters achieve what they've done and they've sacrificed the past 8 weeks training, then it's a smooth show.
Yeah. For any fans that are kind of not going to watch, what do you say to them to kind of persuade them to watch the match tomorrow?
You've got You've got Paddy the Baddy Pinhead fighting Johnny Fancy in there, and it's going to be. I think it's going to be a crazy fight. Paddy wants that belt in his hometown. He wants to be crowned the world champion in his hometown, and you've got a pretty tough opponent there that's going to stop that. Maybe he spoils the party. You don't know. You know, so that in itself, just that one fight in itself, the narrative on that is something that me, as not even a fan watching another sport, would cock my ears up to, I want to watch this. And you got Chris coming in defending his belt. And what's another fight on the card that's really intriguing me, and not a lot of people may see it, but Victor Cheng and Leroy Downs. That's a very intriguing fight, because Cheng is coming back after the layoff. Leroy's on a win streak. He says he's back for good. Cheng says he's back, he's going to make a run for it. So that's a very interesting opening fight on that one TV as well. And that's caught about my ears. I'm hoping everything's running so smooth that I can actually sit back and watch that fight. And if they need me after that, then I'll jump back into the work chain and get moving. But I'm hoping to sit down and watch that. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I actually just spoke to Louis, and he's supremely confident. You know, I mean, the most of the fans that I've spoken to are picking Victor, but you know, there's a certain air that you get from a fighter, you know, when you know they're really confident, and that's what Leroy gives off all the time, to be honest. But I think that's all I got for you, Graham. Thanks for your time. I know you're very busy.
No problem, my man. Lovely to talk to you.
Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.